In this video, we're going to focus on how you can make sure that we have a bar combo line chart where the line chart will nicely be connected with the bar individually. As you can see here, the lines are pointing to the specific bar here, and it keeps on going. So let's start look how we can do this. So let's start look how to position the line chart on each bar in a group combo bar line chart in Chartjs. So to do this, the first thing what we need is we need to go to chartjs3.com, getting started, this specific link, which you can find as well in the description box. So we're going to grab here the border template. So once you're on here, scroll down and copy this chunk of code here. If you wonder how this is set up, this code, watch this video that explains it all. So then I will just paste it all in there. I'll just cut out the title, put the title in here, save, refresh. There we are. So let's maximize the chart size. Say this 80%, save, refresh. There we are. So now we have this. And what I want to do now is convert this. We want to have a bar and combo chart, but there are a few things that we need to do here. Number one, we need to make sure that this has a date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a date adapter, go to chartjs.org, click here on ecosystem, and once you're in here, scroll down and search for adapters. Once you click on this, it will jump to the adapters area or section and select one of these options here. Take one of these two here above, exclude moments, because moments is not being updated anymore since 2020. It has been deprecated. Click, I prefer date FNS, so we're going to grab this one because this only needs one single JavaScript file, while the other one, Luxon, needs two JavaScript files. So I'm going to grab this specific file, which is called the Chartjs date FNS and then bundle.minimize.js, and make sure that that one will load after the Chartjs library. Chartjs library needs to load first, and this has certain dependencies that is located in here. Alright, so once we have this, refresh, we can now start to put in a date. So what I want to do here, quite simple. I'll say here 2022, and then let's say October 20 for today, and then we're going to say 2022, and then 21, and that should be more than sufficient. And let's remove everything else. So once we did that, we can save this, refresh. Right now, it's still not converted into a date. This is just a string value. So what we need to do here is in the X scale, specify that we are now using a date structure. So we're going to say here the type of scale will be time, which is a string value, but this time allows us now, or this here, it creates now a object of time. And then we can say here the unit will be day. And day must be, of course, a string as well. So once we did that, make sure you have a comma here, save this, refresh, and now you can see it recognizes the date as October 20 and October 21. Alright, so this works. So now what I want to do is I want to just copy this, and I will say here the following. I'm going to create a few more bars. So we're going to save this. So we have 3 data sets here. Beautiful. So now what I want to do is, just for the sake of it, let's give it some different colors. I'm going to just remove all of these colors here except for the third one. And here, same story. Third color will be active here. And that's, let's say, the green sales. Or, sorry, the third one is yellow. That's the yellow bar, so it's yellow sales. Next one here, the second data set. That will be the second color. And that's the blue color. So just remove everything else. We'll say here the blue sales. And finally, we have here the red sales. That is the very top color. Save, refresh. Alright, so now we have this. That looks quite nice. And of course, it only shows 2 data sets here. So that will mean only these 2 values are active. And we can just make them slightly different. 6, and let's say here 3 and 6. Save, refresh. There we are. So now we have this. The next thing what I want to do here is to create another data set. And this will be our line. And this is a bar combo, so I realized that what we need to do here is comma. I'm going to say here the type, and this will be our bar type. Let's grab that and put it in here, and above, comma, here. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to remove it here. Because I need to specify in the data sets, specifically which one will be the line. So if I refresh here, nothing changes, but basically they're all bars here. Now if I'm going to grab this, including this comma here, that's fine because I need to add another data set, and this one will be our line chart as type, and we can just say here the line. And for this, I'll just make this a black color by saying 000, 000, save, refresh. Alright, as you can see here, now immediately we get this issue. It positions itself at the very center here of this segment, which is of course correct. That's a structure. However, we have now data sets here, and these data sets should match if you would have every one of those. So how can we solve this issue? And if you look here very carefully, you will see here that this, and let me just change the values of this. Let's make this 1 and 1. You'll see it very nicely. If you look very carefully, you might notice that this line here is at the back of the bar here. You can see it slightly on these lines here, these border lines, and if I make these border lines more thicker, you probably will see it more clearly. There you are. As you can see here, that is not what I want. So what I want to do is that this line will be on the very top. So there's a few ways to do it, and I'm going to use a simple way, or at least there's one way is by moving this to the very top, so that will load first, and everything else will be at the very back. But I don't want that. What I want to do is I want to make it controllable by code. So I'm going to say here order, and the order will be 0, meaning this should be loaded first. By doing that, what I will have to do, and I'll just put this on 10 here so you can see the difference. Here I'm going to say order number 1. So in this case, the order of the lowest value will load first, and the order number 1, or the higher the value, it will load second or later after the first or after the lowest value. So it's exactly like gold's number 1, silver is number 2, and bronze is number 3. I guess that's the same logic or metaphor. So if I save this now, refresh, you'll see here now the line is on top, so it overlaps everyone else. So that is exactly what I want. Alright, so now we have this done, and let me just remove this thickness, and you can see as well the order here has changed. While the line chart was normally the last one loaded, now it forces at the very first, and the legend will match this order. So in here, save, refresh. Alright, so we've got this, and now what I want to do is the following, and that is we're going to start to change a few things. So in here we have these values, and I want to change the values now. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to use some advanced tricks here. What we can do is we can control basically where the line should be, because I want to have 3 lines in this segment, or sorry, 3 dots in this segment, and 3 dots in this segment here, of course matching with these bars. So the first thing is of course to have 3 dots in there. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to say here the x value, x equals, and then we're going to get the exact date of those, because the x value is basically this, and this will understand under which segment. And if I'm talking about segment from this point to here, that's the segment of October 20 and October 21. So we want to say which segment is matching with this. So here we make a first value. We'll say this value will be on the first segment, or 20 October, and then we have here value 1. So what I'm going to do now is comma, paste, comma, paste, comma, paste, comma, paste, comma, paste. So we have in total of 6 values, because we have 2 segments, and every segment should have 3 points. So in here, I'll say this one will be number 2 and number 3, and this one will be number 6, number 9, and number 12. So if I do this, and I want to make sure that this is on 1, you will see here we have a certain order. If I save this, refresh, you can see here what's happening. It works, but as you can see here, it is still centered in the very center of it. So now we have to move these dots here, or at least one here and the other one here, and same here, and we have to loop through that if we would have more data points. So for this, we need to create a special plugin. So I'm going to say here, yes, in the options, you can see here the options curly braces, and then this is the ending of the option curly braces. Then we're going to say here plugins, and I'm going to create a new plugin here, and what would be a nice name for it? I guess line alignment or something like that. You can give it anything you want. I'm going to grab this one, and of course, it doesn't matter what you name it. So I'm going to say here, the line alignment plugin block constant this equals that ID will be this. All right. And then we're going to say when would we like to draw this one. I guess in this case, we can draw the positioning of this after all the other data sets has been drawn. So we can say after data sets or after data sets draw. And we can later on check if this would impact it, but basically it should be always on top, as you can see here. And then you can see even if I hover over these points here, it will still show us the right point of the line. So what I need here is basically the chart argument, the arcs, and the plugin options. So then we have these. And then what I want to do here is, well, let's start to look what we need. Well, we'll be needing a few things. What I want to do is we want to have the positioning, and specifically the positioning of the the X scale or the bar of the X position of the bar from this bar, this bar, this bar, and of course the others. So how do we do that? Well, for this, what we can do here is, and that's a very nice one, we can do a constant, or sorry, not even constant, but we can do a console log. I'm going to use a Chartjs built-in functionality. I'm going to grab your chart, and I'm going to say here dot get dataset meta, and make sure we spell it correctly, dataset meta. And we can grab here the index, and I want the index 0, and the index 0 refers to, of course, the first index here, which is this red sales line, or bar, sorry, the red sales bar. And then we're going to grab here, if I do this, if I save this, refresh, open up developer tab, we get a full, or all these object information, and then we can start to look, and alright, so if I refresh, alright, that looks better. Go in here, and then what we can search here is the data. In the data, we get a lot of information here, and specifically look at this here. We get 2 data points here, which says the X position, which is 72 pixels, that is apparently this one here, and then we have another one is 265. The 265 is the next one of the red one, so this is the first one, and then the second one is this here. So you can see that one is there. So it gives us the information that we really need to know, but it's stored somewhere else. So what we have to do is grab all of these data points of not only this one, but of course of dataset 1, 1, and 2 as well. And with that, we can start to create or extract those values. So let's start and work on this. So how would we do this? Well, in this case, we know how many datasets we have. So I'm just going to leave this as it is for now. Later on, we'll be using that again. But let's see here, how do we calculate our data sets here? Because we have here 4 data sets, but one of them is a line. So we only need to calculate 3 data sets. But of course, if you would have a larger data set, like 5 or 6 items, you want to make sure it's automatically calculated. So I'm going to show you the way to do this. So what we're going to do here, first of all, we're going to do constant, and this is what we call object destructuring. If you don't know object destructuring, I'm going to recommend you in the description box, there's a video understanding Chartjs object destructuring. Very important. I will not explain it here because I have a video for that. It's quite complicated, but important to understand. So in here, what I will need is, I guess, the scales, then the X value of the scales, and we might need the data. So we're going to grab the data as well. So for the data, basically the data here refers to the data object here on the very top, where we can quickly access the data sets and count how many data sets we have. So what I want to do here is 2 things. I need to know how many data sets we have, and I need to know what is the last data set where we are having the line, because that's the most important one. I always assume the last data set will be the line. So in here, I'm going to say last data set. And this last data set is basically this data here, data, and dot. What we can do here is basically this. We go from data here to data sets, and then we just calculate the length of that array, dot length. By doing that, we'll get here, of course, 4, but remember, if there's 4, this is the in array 0-based calculation. So this is index number 3. So what I need to do here, -1. So we get the right value for that. So that will be important later on. So the next thing what we need to do here is, what we want to do is getting the constant of what I would say the x coordinates. And this will be eventually an array, so I will make it a blank array for now, because we want to extract these items here, these values here that we have, and from 0 and 1, but of course after also from the others. So we need to extract those. To do that, what we want to do here then is to create a simple for loop. So we're going to say for, and then I'll just make it this, let I equals 0. And in here, what I want to do is, I want to loop, we say I stands for iteration, which means repeating yourself multiple times. So we want to repeat this many times. How many times exactly? Well, we can calculate based on the labels here. If we have two labels, we want to only repeat it twice because there's basically only two values being shown for every bar, as you can see, or for every data set, there's two values being shown. So that's why the labels is very important for us. So we're going to say here, we're going to get the data dot labels dot, and then I guess here we can say dot length, and then we're going to say I plus plus for incrementing the value plus 1. So once we have this, what I want to do here is I want to push. Remember this item here, what we had? I want to push whatever the value is in here. So what I'm going to do is, let's do a console log again to get just all these values. I want to make sure you understand this fully. So for this one, I'm just going to do a hard code 0, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm sure you can find an easier way to do it, but I will just leave it for now. However, what's most important is we have to iterate it only twice for the first and the second bar, basically the position of bar 1 or index 0, bar index 0, and bar index 1. That's the x position that we need. So we say here dot data, and in data we could say here normally 0, but I don't want to do 0 because we also need number 1, and because we have here already calculated twice, or the iteration of the loop, we're going to say here I, and I say dot x. This here will give us, if I do this, and I just do this one here, and we say here 1 and 2, and the reason I'm doing this I will show you later on. If I save this, and then let's see if we have any other console log. No. Alright, so refresh, we should see here the full value, and you see them if you look very carefully. We get, let me just zoom in here. Alright, you'll see here you get the smallest, and then it gradually goes up. And this is on purpose because we get here index 0 of red, index 0 of blue, index 0 of yellow, and then of course here index 1 of red, etc, etc. So that's why we have this order. If you would have a different order, if you would do this one, let's say that, and this one would be others, then you get a different order, and then the line will be a zigzag. So we need to have the exact structure, how this is positioned, that order of drawing we need to have as well, or else the line will have a very weird zigzag formation. So we want to avoid that zigzag formation. Very important. Alright, so now we have this. All what we're going to do is we have these x coordinates here, and I'm going to say here dot push, put that in there. Alright, and then what this basically does is grab that coordinate, push it in the array. So we're going to do this, we do it in here, there we are, and then once I have this, we can do now a console log of core or x coordinates. Let's show this here, save, refresh, now we get exactly 6 items here with the exact formation or the exact structure. Alright, so now we have this. Now what we need to do is we need to say now the line should get these x coordinates instead of whatever it has right now. Because right now it just has the center of this one here. So that's why we have to now, yes, reposition the line itself. So what we're going to do is, to do this, we're going to say a chart.get dataset meta. Remember, this is basically the same as what we have here. But now we could do here, we have the last data set here. I'm going to grab this one here, put that in here. So we have this one here. Because we already have these here hard-coded, but this one should be soft-coded as the very last. And this should eventually be soft-coded as well, but I will skip that. That's, I guess, something you can easily figure out eventually. So then I'm going to say here, what I want to do is the data dot for each. And what I want to do is because, and well, maybe let me just show you exactly why I'm doing this. If I do here the data.x and I do here console log, you will see that this one doesn't have 3 values, or 2 values. No, this one will have 6 data values because there are 6 values in here. Alright, interesting. Last data set -1, length -1 doesn't work at all. So what is going on here? 129, get dataset meta, and let's see here. What am I missing? Am I missing here something? Let's do this one. Alright, interesting. So apparently I get now, of course, I need to get the index number if I go to the X, but I don't want to show you the X. I want to show you the full array. And you can see here, the array here is this. But we have created a new array with our X coordinates, and that needs to replace whatever we have here. That's why, as you can see here, this one is just grabbing the center position on here 3 times, and then here center position of the segment October 1 or 21 3 times. So we need to now make sure that this is being overwritten. And for that, we're going to use a for each loop so we can automate this. So we're going to say here for each. Then we're going to say a data point, comma, index. Then we're going to say here. This is a for loop method. So this is a callback functionality. Basically, it's an arrow function, for arrow expression function. Or anyway. So then what I want to do here is, well, we are in the data point, which is basically the shorthand for this. But where I want to go is specifically for every one of them. Let me just show you. I need to go to the X coordinate. So if I do the data point here now, refresh, you can see here for we had an array that shows all items. Now we don't get an array, but we just get the object of every individual item because of the for each loop, and we get the X value here. So what I want to do is now, this, if I do .x, we should get here 6 times x or multiple times because it loops through it. But you can see here, you get 3 times, 3 times. Alright, so that's all correct. What I want to do now is, I just want to change this. Whatever it is here, I'm going to say it will be equal to x core, and then we get here the index number. So that's it. Once we do this, we get the index number. We can just semicolon here, save that, refresh, and there we are. Alright, so you can see here, sometimes it has temporary, it does weird, but I guess if I load it multiple times, it will eventually work how it should be. So if I do this, does it? Alright. Later on you will see it will work nicely. And maybe I need to do a hard reset or something like that, but it doesn't matter so much. So we have this. What I want to do, and this is very important, is eventually what happens if we have another data set. So let's add up a new one here, or we can even say, let's say not even new data set. If you have a new data set, you have to do another item that I'll show you later on. So, but we are going to add up a new day, and our numbers will then eventually match here because we have already values ready. So if I do this, right now it's not showing, and the reason why it's not showing, of course, is if you go to scroll down here, we have to adjust this one here, because then, of course, our line should have new values matching, and a new value should have, of course, 22. So let's copy all of this. I will put a comma here, enter, paste. Then I say here 22. Save that, refresh, and there we are. So this will work nicely. If you have another data set, let's add up a data set in here. I'll copy this, including the comma here. Then we put this in there. Alright, and I'll just say here yellow number 2. And this one I'll just make this solid. Save that, refresh. Alright. So you can see here, it will skip, and that's a nice one. So if, for example, something is not in there for, and you don't want to have a value in there for that, in this case, that will skip. But what we really need here is we want to add up the value here. So how do we do that? Well, basically, we just have to go down here and just say here we have a new value. I'm going to say here this will be dataset number 3. And of course, as I said earlier, you can probably find a loop for this or something like that, a proper for loop for this or something. Once you do this, alright, interesting. We get this one here. We have that. Alright, so we have all of these coordinates. Do we have everything? Let me double check. I guess I thought we would have all. So what are we missing? Oh, of course. So what are we really missing? Well, basically we're just missing here additional values, because the moment we put in another data set, we have 12 values, but remember we only have here, 9 values. So what we have to do here, of course, to add up here, if you can add up this, put in here any value, I'll just leave that one in there as it is. You can copy here as well. So that's of course logical, because you're missing, or else you will be missing data here. And if I save this, we should see here now, make sure we have a comma. Oh, no comma here. Save, refresh, and there we are. Does it still look weird? It does look weird still a little bit here. Alright, I cannot explain this for now, but I'm certain once you reload it multiple times, it worked. I tested this as well. However, you can just push that through multiple times to see if that works. But this is basically the way how we can match this. And if we hover over these data points here, you can see here we get the value here, or we get the bar tooltip. So all of this works very nicely. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you want to go even deeper, for example, we have here one scale with numbers, but the other side you want to have another scale with percentages or something else. In that case, I'm going to recommend you this video here on how to show two scales in a bar line combo chart in Chartjs, where you can show more data because you have one side you have one value and the other side you have another value.